Hi guys, today we'll be analyzing Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. I'm about to show you a very short clip, and in order to understand it the best, I'd like you to track and trace what the girl is doing in the foreground of the commercial, and I'd also like you to, at the same time, have a look at what's happening in the background.
Happy birthday to you!
Make a wish.
Granny!
Hello.
Have you done your homework?
Ada!
For a general strike.
Ready or not? Here it comes!
Violent clashes with
Live ammunition against.
Deserve to get shot.
Have a nice day, Mum.
airstrikes on rebel.
From what you have just watched, do you believe that this little girl can achieve whatever she puts her heart to and choose how she wants to live her life without any limitations? Hold your answer, but now let's watch the rest of this little girl's story.
What's happening?
Heavy fighting in Richmond.
Where are we?
Rebel forces advance.
Daddy!
Happy birthday to you. Make a wish, darling.
Do we think that the same little girl, just in a different town, has similar choices as the girl in the first half? No, obviously not. The little girl is now a displaced citizen in a war-torn, conflict-ridden environment outside of North America. Here her choices are different than those from other parts of the world.
However, if we go back to the girl in the first half, she too was shaped and constrained by the choices society deemed appropriate for her, whether it be how she has to manage herself in society or the burdens of an education. The environment has a large bearing on the comforts bestowed upon the person living in it. Individuals in first world societies believe that they culturally, politically, and economically have a great amount of choice in how they navigate their lives. However, every individual, whether they live in a situation of comfort or a lack of safety, is in fact constrained by the borders placed upon by the cultural, economic, social, and political borders. We'll be talking about today the paradox of choice. Individuals falsely believe they have freedom. However, they must concede to a truism of life in that choices are constructs based primarily upon social, cultural, economic, and political freedoms and/or limitations. Achebe's Things Fall Apart explores the highly rigid and constrained archaic social constructs within the Nigerian community of Ethiopia. Within the story, Okwanko is following this trend of society where he too has his choices shaped and therefore stripped by the environment he was present in. Firstly, in one of the first descriptions of Okwanko, it is said that perhaps down in his heart, Okwanko was not a cruel man, but his whole life was dominated by fear, the fear of failure and of weakness. And so, Okwanko was ruled by one passion to hate everything that his father Unoka had loved. One of those things was gentleness, and another was idleness. Throughout his life, it looked as though the choices made by Okwanko were his and his alone, whether it be the fact that he would beat members of his family, including his wife and children, who displayed feminine characteristics or questioned his authority. This doesn't excuse abusive behavior, but it does show that he was compelled by outside forces that had more to do with what he had experienced rather than who he was as a person. However, these choices were never his to begin with. His childhood shaped the subliminal messaging that makes him desire and seek out results that are counter to his overall benefit. Due to Okwanko's ingrained sense of hatred and disgust towards his father, his one mission was to never let anyone be similar to his father, including himself. This only seeks to further incapacitate his decisions as once lacking any choice at all. To Hamlet's soliloquy, to be or not to be. Hamlet is seen having a discussion with himself about the choice he should make in regards to whether he should choose to live or die. To die, to sleep. No more, and by a sleep, we say we end the heartache and the thousand natural desire to exact revenge for his father, that is this hunger that makes him lose any opportunity of having a choice within his own discussion. He was going to stay alive to exact revenge on his father's killer regardless. After Okwanko is charged with killing a fellow clansman, his very own clan set fire to his houses, demolished his red walls, killed his animals, and destroyed his barn. It was justice of the earth goddess, and they were merely her messengers. In life, Okwanko thinks he is in charge of the choices he makes. When he kills a clansman, which is one of the several bad choices he made throughout his life, it is also the one that he least intended to. However, he faced the most serious repercussions for any of the actions when he killed the clansman.
It shows how Okonkwo could not escape society's traditions as they take away his choice to defend himself. While predicaments happened, the law did not take into account his own economic instability and insecurity. This shows shades of Marxism, as the bourgeoisie have all the say over the proletariat. The social hierarchies are nurtured and maintained because it gives the proletariat something to aspire to. By paralyzing individual choice, society stays living in the past, not for the future. Okonkwo and his clan were done. The red earth church, which Mr. Brown had built, was a pile of earth and ashes, and for the moment the spirit of the clan was passing. As a choice that Okonkwo and his peers made to make a point to the church about their disapproval of the present reality, Okonkwo had an innate and relentless desire to be truly back to his role as one of the leaders of Umofia. Therefore, when it came time to take action to truly win back what he had lost, burning down the church was no longer an option. It was his only action left. At the end of the play, when the clan is looking for Okonkwo, they came to the tree from which Okonkwo's body was dangling. It is an abomination for a man to take his own life. It is an offense against the earth, and a man who commits it will not be told that our life is truly ours and ours alone, when in fact it is a direct result of how and where we are raised. Okonkwo thought that within his life he really had nothing to hope for and thus nothing to live for. Everything he had worked hard to achieve was taken from him. This forced him to take the greatest step that an individual could take, which was their own life. Similarly, in A Streetcar Named Desire, Blanche, like any individual, has full rights to her life. However, when she gets raped by Stanley, she is robbed of her pride, dignity, and emotions, therefore making her life null and void for all intents and purposes. It shows how one's life is truly not their own. The society Stanley lives in elevates the say he has over Blanche's life. The individual tragedies of both the suicide and rape are not isolated events. Rather, it is part of a greater, more troubled set of situations and circumstances that lead to individual acts of terror. These harmful decisions are a byproduct of a society that is in trouble and crying out for help. If individuals truly start believing that we are more similar than we are different, then we are indirectly following the African philosophy of Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. And because we live in a climate where we are far from perfect, we can adopt peaceful missions to do right by others so that we could be an agent of positive change. Then, when the geopolitical climate becomes poor, humanity seems to be more insular, that they look at their backyard and say, at least we're okay. Compelling literature like Things Fall Apart shows that for anyone at any given point, things really can fall apart, and in that we sometimes have little to no choice.